see. Yes, I think that'll do it. Sorry, I
Yeah, I
look a little
think I agree.
disheveled. Oh my. So, welcome everyone. I bring you greetings from the great little state of South Carolina here in the United States. We are having quite a sunny day, so I'm working from home and it's a little bright here, so forgive me for that. So, let's see here. Okay. So you all have things configured a little differently than I'm used to, um, but we will work with it. So I hope everyone had a good day, ready for the weekend. Um, I just finished my work day, and I appreciate you all bearing with me. Usually I don't work right up until, but that was a little unplanned. So I'm guessing that you all have already done some introductions. Thank you so much for introducing me. Um, I don't really stand on formalities. I'm glad to be with the chapter. You all have a great group. Your board is working really hard to provide you all with a good BA community as well as resources. I hope you all have done some networking. I see we've got people from a lot of different locations, which is great. I don't see anyone's LinkedIn in the chat. So I'm going to encourage you all to put your LinkedIn in there. I don't have mine handy. If anyone has mine, feel free to throw it in the chat. But I like to always encourage business analysts to network with each other. So we're going to be talking about personality types. And even though I am one to go out there, like if you need a volunteer, I'll probably volunteer myself, even if I don't have the time or the resources, because that's just sort of what I do. But that being said, I'm quite an introverted personality, and I find that a lot of my BA friends are, whether they are outgoing introverts or very sort of quiet, shy introverts. Generally, that introverted nature allows us to have the patience and the time to do the analysis that makes up our professional world, right? BAs deliver value because we're good analysts. You can't be a good analyst if you don't have the patience to work through the problem, talk to the people. Even if, once you talk to those people, you think in your mind, gosh, I never really want to have to do that again. But, so we're going to do a little talking today about personalities. The Babcock talks about uh, communication strengths, communication skills as being quite imperative to our work. And we're going to highlight that. But because you yourself may have some preferences, let's just say that, in how you communicate and deal with people, it's just important for you to be aware of it so that you can get the most stakeholder engagement that you can on an initiative. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen, and thank you so much, those that have put your LinkedIn in the chat. Um, Please feel free, and thank you for putting mine in the chat as well. Feel free to connect with each other. Again, my BA friends, I always try to encourage them to connect because you never know when you're going to need someone. We're in some rather tough economic times globally, and so let's just bear those things in mind. Okay, so let me share my screen and give me just a minute. Hopefully I won't have any issues with that. Okay. All right, just a second. All right, so in the book that this talk is based upon, so I'm going to give you just 1 second. I am going to just make a note of the LinkedIn's in the chat. Remember that for people to be able to click on your LinkedIn in a forum such as this, you must enter the HTTPS ://. So I want you guys to be able to definitely connect. So I'm going to call out my chapter member, Anne, and I'm going to tell her to put her LinkedIn in the chat again, but remember to add the HTTPS :// so that people can click their way to success here. Okay. All right, so everyone can see my screen okay, right? So by a show of hands, or either you can come off mute. And I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Forgive me, I need to reorientate things. So before we get started, how many people have read this book before, Surrounded by Idiots? I must say that I was a little off-put by the title. I don't think it's proper form to consider or call anyone an idiot. So initially I was taken aback and I was thinking to myself, this is not my kind of book. I wasn't really wanting to put any time into something that, you know, would actually reference another individual as an idiot. But I have done a little search and I understand why the author selected that title. And so if you haven't read the book, if you have read the book or portions of it, come off mute, let me know. Oh, I'm sorry, we're in a different kind of format. You might not be able to come off mute, so you could raise your hand possibly, and I could ask Kimmy to let me know if anyone is in the chat, or if they put it, you could put it in the chat as well. Anyone, has anyone read that book or portions of it, or even have some type of conjecture as to what it's trying to explain to us here? Say chat is disabled. Okay. Kimmy, can you help me out just a little bit here?
I think the chat is enabled. I can see some chat ongoing.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I was looking in Q&A. So I guess for the Q&A, some people it's disabled, but I do see. Never heard of it. No, unfortunately, have not read. Okay. All right. Very good. So the premise behind the book, the man that wrote the book felt as though when we don't understand one another, we tend to take a very dim view of the other person and actually consider calling them an idiot because, you know, they don't speak the same language you do, or not necessarily verbatim language, but let's just say that we don't understand one another. We're talking about things that we're talking beyond each other. And I don't know if you've ever had a stakeholder like that at work with a group of people. I know that I recently changed positions. So I'm actually doing quite a bit of stakeholder analysis right now on a day-to-day basis. I'm always meeting new people, new groups of stakeholders. I just discovered a group of stakeholders this week that I did not realize were relevant. Can anyone come off mute and tell me what could possibly happen if you overlook a stakeholder group? What do you think could happen with your communications if you don't include somebody because you didn't know that they were relevant, but you find out about them a little late in the game? What kind of thing might happen on your project or the initiative that you're working on? And if you can't come off mute because of the webinar format, feel free to put it in the chat.
And they can raise your hand, they can unmute you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will just assume that they cannot respond, so I'll keep going. I see something in the chat. Thank you, Peter. Missed requirements. Possible. Thank you, John. Possible project failure. Okay. Yeah, it could have very serious consequences, right? Incomplete requirements. Definitely. You could miss something if you miss someone. So as we talk about some of these personality differences, the book really sort of broadly categorizes people by their color. Okay. So it talks about the red person. The red person is sort of the stakeholder you can't miss, right? Even if you want to, you can't miss the red stakeholder because they're usually quite outspoken, right? Um, they make their presence known as well as their opinions and things of that nature. Um, so they're very energetic, they're very competitive usually, very decisive. Even if they make the wrong decision, they will quickly decide. Whereas, I will disclose what kind of personality I am a little later, but I'm the kind of person I'm going to take some time. Usually they're very goal oriented, and they're very direct to the point, you know. Now, let me also back up a bit and say that most individuals tend to not fall into just one color. Most individuals have a dominant color, and they might be a combination of a few colors. So, as we talk about this, think about yourself, because understanding of others starts with understanding yourself. So if you understand yourself better, you know, and so this is what this talk is about, really, understanding people in general and understanding yourself better so that you can then go and relate to those stakeholders more easily. Okay. So that's the red personality. Just think dominant, a very decisive, goal oriented, competitive, energetic person. Direct to the point. That's their communication style. So yellow people tend to be more inspiring. They are the inspirational type, very optimistic, uh, tends to be more talkative and enthusiastic. They always see the glass half full, very social. These are the individuals who can generate ideas very easily and just tend to be more creative. Okay. The green people tend to be more stable and supportive. They are the relationship builders. They're the team players who always want to work together, find solutions that benefit everyone. Very supportive, very reliable, very patient, very diplomatic about what they say and how they say it. The green people tend to be excellent listeners as well as diplomatic. Okay. So I'd just like to go back and talk about what their strengths are. I'll talk about blue in a second. So if I go back to red, if you happen to identify with being a red person as a BA, you're going to be more take charge, ready to solve the problem, not necessarily asking questions actually before trying to solve that problem. So as a BA, if you tend to fall into the red dominant group, you yourself will have to work on developing your personal pause, meaning before you get into action, go into action mode and try to solve problems, you actually take a personal pause and remember that at least as a BA, if you're operating as a BA, that you need to take a pause so that you can ask the appropriate questions, think through the situation that you're presented with, and then begin to ask questions and analyze the problem, not take off to solve the problem out of the gate. As a yellow person, that inspirational BA, you might need to temper how you generate your ideas because you'll be bubbling with ideas if you're this particular personality type. You'll also be able to recognize this person if you are in a brainstorming session or some type of a workshop where you're coming up with ideas. So again, that's that yellow person. Going back to the green person before we go to blue. So their strengths, your strength as a BA would be in just building those relationships with the stakeholders. Stakeholder engagement is what results when you have built a relationship with someone where they feel they can tell you, respond to your questions very honestly, and and they feel as though they can work with you and relate to you. So this is a plus as a BA. If you're a great relationship builder, stakeholder engagement, no matter which stakeholder color type you're working with, should come easy to you. And then last, blue, the analytical personality. Basically, they are more detail oriented, very logical, focused on, the quality of the work, very systematic in the way that they do things. And they like for people to respond in kind. So if that's not your personality type, but you do have a stakeholder that presents in that way as their dominant strength, then we'll need to talk about some ways to deal with that stakeholder. Again, none of these personality types would result in a poor relationship outcome. It's just that knowing the differences, you can play to that person's preferences in trying to work with them. Okay. So if this is your color as a BA, again, this is your strength. This is where you're going to be very analytical and accurate and come up with the answers to solve these problems. So as a BA, being a very an analytical kind of person is a strength. No problems there. Okay. All right. So again, this is the personality system. Generally, no one person fits into just a particular color, but you have a dominant color that you want to try to play to as you learn and understand yourself. Okay. So again, the red personality type. Um, Now that I've gone over the colors, hopefully you can see yourself as either one dominant color or maybe a mixture of colors, because usually we all have more than one. But for my dominant red people here, um, let me just ask you, can you identify with the BA strengths that are on this slide? So if you're a dominant red, if you think you're a dominant red personality type, can you identify with the strengths here? Being able to make those quick decisions and cutting off the conversations if they're unnecessary. Being able to handle a crisis situation. Um, Actually just driving the initiative forward, not overthinking, not overanalyzing or anything like that. So tell me, is there anyone in the chat that can identify as a red? Now, again, the benefit of being able to identify and know who you are is that when we talk about getting people engaged, we like to be around others who share our beliefs or our preferences and how we do things, how we live. We are coming together today as business analysts who, and we also understand that a business analyst doesn't have to have the title of BA. Currently in my job, I don't have a BA title. I have a project manager title, and I work with BAs. And I still, even though in my job situation now, I'm working with BAs, but I'm still doing business analysis work because there's certain things, there's just so much work to go around. There's certain things that the BAs on my job do that, you know, it still falls outside of what I need to do as a project manager. So I still do end up doing business analysis work, but I so appreciate having people around me that are like-minded. And they seemingly appreciate having a project manager that understands and can relate to the work of a BA. So we get along fabulously. We've got different personality types, but like sort of tends toward like. So if you identify as a predominantly red personality type, generally, if you identify a stakeholder with similar traits or similar strengths, um, that relationship will go just that much easier for you. Okay. Um, so with the red personality type, again, very direct kind of person, but they do have some challenges. These are some things that you may need to look out for within your personality type as well as with your stakeholders. So because you are quick to make decisions, very direct with people, you might overlook the small things. You might overlook the important details. You might have a little issue with some impatience. And so you might not be as thorough with your analysis. And you may talk over and not intentionally, but you actually may talk over the quieter ones among us. And those people, those ideas won't become heard, right? So, as a business analyst, one of the things we are charged with doing is facilitating conversations, discussions, debates, decisions. And as that facilitator, we are to make sure that everyone has a voice, right? So if we've got someone in the group who isn't talking, who isn't really contributing, you know, one of the things we are to do as a good facilitator is to bring that out of them, draw that information out of them, make them engage. Stakeholder engagement is all about making sure everyone who has a stake in your initiative or project participates in some way so that when your project comes to an end, they can also see the value that they were looking for in that final solution, right? But if you never got them to input, got their input on anything, you wouldn't be able to identify with that value. They would not see the value in it. So as we talked about before, we don't want to leave anyone out. So as this is, if this is your predominant personality type, review this slide and just reflect on how you can identify with this. Now, if this isn't your dominant personality type, think about those people you work with, some of the stakeholders on your initiative, and whether or not you can see them in these characteristics. And flip it around. Think about the challenges that you're having with them. Now, one of the things I didn't ask when we were starting out, the BAPOC talks about stakeholder analysis, and it gives there's several different ways you can actually analyze stakeholders, and I cannot tell you how many people I personally know, as well as students when I teach, that people don't do a what I call a purposeful analysis of stakeholders, and then when they get into trouble, meaning they might have some conflict or some misunderstandings, and you ask, well, what was your stakeholder analysis like? There really isn't any. People really don't purposely do it, meaning actually, they will write down the names of the people, of course, but not go through and actually think through the interactions of the different people. Like my suggestion is once you've identified, as we continue to go through these personality types, once you have identified people, and again, it's not to stereotype anyone, it's just for the purposes of understanding what they prefer. What are their preferences? What are their likes and dislikes? And putting those people together. If you have the opportunity to sort of segment your stakeholders as far as meetings are concerned and elicitation activities and that sort of thing, if you can group people together who have similar preferences, then that will make the stakeholder interactions go more smooth, right? You don't want to put conflicting personalities together if you can help it. And so that's another thing that we will talk about here. Okay, so moving on to the yellow personality type, I say that these people bring in the sunshine, right? These are our enthusiastic people, creative, bubbly. I would also call that kind of personality a bubbly person. Seems to always have energy, even at 5 o'clock when it's time to go home. But they are open, to new ideas. They like to see things on a positive side. They see the positive side of everything. Very optimistic. So, of course, here, as a BA, that would, if you happen to be able to identify with this personality type, then you're excellent at coming up with new ideas, brainstorming, actually engaging people, because really people are drawn to this yellow personality type. So if you find yourself, you find that people are just sort of naturally gravitate to you at work, want to talk with you, seem to enjoy being around you. This is great. These are the natural networkers, the people that sort of, you could also call them sort of the life of the party. Even if you aren't quite that over the top, but if you do sort of resonate as a yellow personality type at your base, then just working with people, getting along with people, being able to generate ideas. Now, this personality type, from the stakeholder standpoint, this is the kind of person you want to sort of infuse with or group with your stakeholders that, are not like this, to sort of bring them out more. I had a meeting today at work, and not giving too many details here, but I'm having a very difficult time um, defining the needs. What do you do? I've never had this happen before. What do you do when you're trying to elicit, what these people need and they can't articulate it? What do you do? And I was really racking my brain trying to think of someone else, because I haven't met a yellow personality type where in this new role that I have. I was trying to think, do I know someone else? Is there someone else here that I could bring in that could sort of liven things up a bit, get us talking? I'm at a loss. We spent another hour, and I need to come up with something. So if anyone has any good ideas, let me know. But this is what I was thinking about. I was like, I need someone here that understands the business, that I could bring into one of these elicitation sessions to help us brainstorm and to help us come out with ideas. I don't know the business yet, so that's not something that I can sort of interject. So I'm looking for another stakeholder to bring in, um, who can help. Now, of course, this isn't all bed of roses. A personality type like this does have some drawbacks, as do all the others. They may become easily distracted. They might not follow through on, what they said they were going to do. They don't like the rigid structure. So, a 1 hour elicitation session may work with them, but a 4 hour workshop, by hours 2, 3, and 4 may not, you know. It just depends. But this is the kind of thing you need to sort of keep in the back of your mind. How can I use this to my advantage by understanding that this personality type might help me deal with another personality type? Because at the end of the day, you're just trying to get to a particular goal, right? You're just trying to move the project forward, and do your work. So, okay. So let's talk about the green personality type. So, what are these green people like? Well, in general, they're pretty calm and steady, um, very patient and supportive types of people. Definitely team oriented. You can depend on them to be very diplomatic, to actually allow you to, explain, whatever the exercise is you're going to want them to do. They will listen. They will take whatever you're giving them and, sort of weigh the pros and cons before giving you an answer. If you've asked for their help on something, if you've asked them to help you to understand the business more, understand the problems, they'll actually thoughtfully go through everything with you, take the time to actually, deliver some information of value. So this is really a good personality type to work with as a stakeholder. This is also the kind of personality type that you want to have a balanced representation, whether it's in a meeting, some type of workshop that you're conducting, so that they can sort of balance out the others, right? So again, I'll go back to if you have the opportunity to group and select and place stakeholders for certain types of elicitation activities or following up on something, you definitely want to balance the composition, excuse me, of what kinds of stakeholders you have. So really, this talk is about getting you to think about these personality types. Of course, in a sort of in a casual way, you might do some of this when you are thinking about your stakeholders, but let's do it a little bit more purposely so that you can get a better stakeholder outcome, get that engagement, get those results that you're going for. Okay. So what are some of the strengths if you as a BA identify with this personality type? Again, I've talked about it as far as building those lasting relationships. The relationship builder will get the stakeholder engagement, right? So if people see you as a person who's rather fair, diplomatic, patient, supportive of them and the team, generally they will gravitate and talk to you a little easier. Usually you can resolve any kinds of conflicts that you run into amongst the team or between the different stakeholder groups. Different departments have different ideas about what they want out of something. You can usually, a person with a green personality type can diffuse that rather easily. And again, this personality type as a BA will help in making sure that there is a balanced stakeholder representation. Okay. So the people who love to hear themselves talk and they want to be heard and tell you what they think, as well as the people who are quiet and reflective and they aren't voicing what they need. Still, a BA with this particular personality type will make sure that they are heard. Okay. Well, there are some challenges. The green personality type may be resistant to change. Um, they may not. They may not actually engage people to share their views honestly because they are trying to avoid confrontation. Um, and they also may struggle with tight deadlines. So this may be a person who um, time is an invisible quality for them. So um, again, if you understand that about them, then you can approach them and get the kinds of information you need out of them, as well as get it when you need it. Because all these other bright, glowy characteristics can result in a negative outcome if you need this information by a certain time and the person doesn't give it to you when you need it, right? Okay. So the blue personality type. So again, we had said that in this environment here, blue personality type will get those details. Um, Analyze things, be very precise and systematic about how they go about solving problems or collecting the information that you requested or giving you an answer to your question, even logical in how they uh, go about responding to what you have asked about. Very quality focused, these people are very methodical and they themselves they give what they are expecting, so they deeply value accurate and logical processes. So what they give you is what they expect to see in return. So if you're going to build a relationship with a person like this, with all of these personalities, but we'll just start here. You want to give them what they're putting out. So if they give you information in a timely manner, very timely manner usually, and complete, accurate, if you can show them the same kind of information coming back in return in your responses to them and how you deal with them, um, good relationship builder right there. And that goes with any of these personalities. People like others that are like them. And so you may have to be a chameleon of sorts in dealing with these different personality types and presenting what you know that they are looking for. Okay. So if you're a BA and you have this personality type, what are your strengths? Of course, you can do the analysis. You can put in the time, and you're a curious person who can put in the time to uncover the root of the problem, do a thorough analysis, make sure it's quality work, and complete all of that comprehensive documentation and such. Okay, finding the issues, very thorough analysis. Okay. So, but there are some challenges here. So you may overthink things a bit. Analysis paralysis, right? Um, that could be an issue. You could struggle if the problem isn't well defined, which is like a lot of life, right? Some of our work problems get sticky. You know, what I'm going through right now, another project, it's sticky, very ambiguous. Um, and I can't rush in or have the other BAs rush in to solve a problem before it's become well defined. And so we're at a bit of a standstill. And I'm trying to help push the group through because we have to define the problem properly before we try to solve it. But a blue personality type may get frustrated because they like that precision. They like the problem being clean, but life is messy. Okay. So, but in understanding that about the people that you're working with, it will, sort of help you to be able to work with people that have this personality type. Okay. So any questions so far? I'm sorry, I know I've been running by here, just sort of checking the time. Let me just see if there are any questions in the chat. Okay. So now that we've talked about the different personality types, and I've told you that generally people have a dominant color, even if they have like, um, you know, um, even if they themselves are a representation of more than two colors, they usually have a dominant color. So, without asking people questions directly, just in having some communication with your stakeholders. So let me ask this question. If you're trying to get to know your stakeholders better, because before you could group them into various personality types, you've got to have some interaction with them. So if you're new to the company, then that might present a challenge because, like me, I haven't met everyone. But if you've been at a company for a while and you work with these people on other projects, I would assume that this makes it easier. So if I could get someone to come off mute, how would you suggest people go about just trying to get to know the stakeholders so that you can do this kind of analysis? What do you think about that? How can you get to know stakeholders on possibly a new project, or if you're at a new company, how can you get to know them? Okay, all right. So I see some responses in the chat here about, ask more questions, meet for coffee. Casual interactions are key. Okay, but let's just say you're working virtually. So how could you overcome that if you're working virtually? What are some different ways you can use to get more informal interactions? Okay. So there are different ways. I mean, like I'm currently working hybrid. So some days I'm in the office, some days I'm at home. And so me being the introvert that I am, I don't usually like to do a lot of social things, but I'm doing quite a bit of social right now. Um, Whenever I go into the office, I'm trying to participate in anything that is going on, just so that I can get to meet more people and get to know people a little bit better, get to know them in those informal situations. Um, Observe what they're doing with others. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So that means when I go to work, when I'm in the office, I'm not just taking lunch at my desk. Why? because I need to see people in action. I need to see how they're interacting with other people outside of my projects, right? I just, just to talk to them about things. Maybe talk about any old project with common requirements. Yes, I would definitely say so. That's one good thing to do. Absolutely. So, some companies have a more formalized process about lessons learned and all of that, but the way to actually get to know people is just talking to them, which can present a challenge if you're of a more introverted personality. It's like, for me, I'm an introvert, but I can talk with purpose. Like, I can talk, talk, talk because in this particular setting here to present this presentation, I've got a purpose. You take out the purpose, then I'm like, you know, I can be alone and be very, very happy. So that's why I'm saying at lunch, I'm like, my purpose is to eat lunch, not to socialize. But I've recognized that in order to be able to, group people as these particular personality types, I've got to get out and I've got to mix and mingle and get some context outside of a work environment, if you will, or outside of the project environment, just to sort of be able to tell, what kind of person am I dealing with? So let me just move here. So how can we improve our communication across the various types? Well, you can adapt your style. I'm not suggesting to fake it, but I am suggesting that once you identify the communication preference of your stakeholders, adapt it to sort of match it. If you've got a stakeholder that really values um, certain things, do things in that way, right? To try to match what they are looking for. If they're looking for very precise kinds of responses, be it in email or documents that you give them, the timeliness, whatever it is, match it if you can, because like equals like. You know, they he or she will gravitate to you and appreciate your interaction if you treat them in that manner. Okay. Another thing that you can do is value the differences. When you meet a person who is very much unlike you, one of your stakeholders, don't be off put by that, but actually value that and see that as a strength, right? So I'm definitely not a yellow personality. I do not bring the sunshine to the conversation. I'm not bubbly and I tend to be creative, but in a limited kind of way, but I can appreciate those yellows. Like I said, I'm looking for a yellow right now at my current place of employment because I cannot, my elicitation sessions aren't going anywhere. And I'm open for ideas. I'm open for ideas. So I'm looking for a yellow that can help. So also build bridges. Make sure to diversify your teams if you can, like diversify your stakeholder groups. And in this context, I'm meaning when you schedule your meetings or your elicitation sessions, workshops, whatever, try to diversify the kinds of people you're going to have there, not necessarily by culture or race or anything like that. I'm talking about diversify personality types, making sure you don't just have a room full of talkers, have the talkers, the outgoing reds, as well as some of these quieter greens, as well as some of these analytical blues. And, the spectrum goes on, but you want to sort of balance it out because actually uh, diversity lends itself to, as far as group dynamics is concerned, lends itself to a stronger and more cohesive team, right? So even as a BA, if you're not the leader of the team or anything like that, so you could be if you're a BA team leader, but in general, understanding and thinking through these group dynamics could help you in facilitating your various sessions. And if you can't choose the composition for a particular meeting, at least think through before you go into that meeting who's going to be there and go ahead and have yourself a plan of action, if you will. Like, I already know that Linda's going to be quiet and she probably won't say anything to the end of the meeting. Or I already know that this particular personality probably won't give me any response unless I send out all of this information in advance so that they understand not just the purpose of the meeting, but what I'm expecting to get out of them or what I'd hope to get out of them, right? So just preparing in that way, sharing information with your stakeholders in that way, so that when you bring them together, again, whether you can sort of pick and choose who's going to be a part of the group or not, so that it comes together well. Okay. So improving your communication across the types is all about adapting, valuing those differences between people, and building bridges to bring those individuals together. Okay, let's just see in the chat. Okay, thank you for that feedback. Getting feedback from people who worked with them previously, that always helps. That always helps, especially if you communicate amongst yourself. So BAs tend to and this isn't new information, BAs tend to not to work independently, right? Even if you've got several BAs in a company, they tend to work in different areas, which is why I always encourage BAs to come together, share experiences, there's strength in numbers, so that you can share best practices as well as just give each other support. What business analysts do is very important. And so much so that leaders and other stakeholders don't seem to understand the value sometimes of business analysis until something has gone wrong. And then the problem generally will trace back to a lack in some area of business analysis that wasn't carried forward in the project. So, but here, project success, a little pyramid in closing, project success. It's all about understanding your stakeholders, understanding how to engage with them, and tailoring your approach to deal with them, to communicate and engage them, customizing how you elicit information from them based on those various personality types, understanding team dynamics at a certain level, understanding having a large amount of people who have personality types that don't go well together, how to reduce that conflict. And overall, if you apply these types of observations and learnings, it can result in better project success. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm just going to check the chat here. So do I have any questions, or not just sort of questions, but observations? Because the things that I've talked about today, if you've worked in the work world at any point, you have had to deal with this. But what I'd like for you to take away and possibly check out this book and do a little bit more research on is how to do this people observing, this personality typing more purposefully, so that you can get better outcomes with your stakeholders. Understanding yourself first. So as you go back and review this talk, or take a look at the book, understanding yourself first and where you fit in on the color spectrum, and being honest with yourself, and then taking a look at others and how they interact, and the book goes through and gives some good examples that you can take a look at a little bit later. But don't be off put by the title like I was. I was really intrigued by this exploration of personality types, and I felt it would be helpful for others to do so as well. Okay, so Ryan, let's see here. If your elicitation isn't going anywhere, there are multiple people in the session, you may want to try individual one-on-one interviews in case stakeholders do not want to speak up with others in the room. They might be more open to talking one-on-one. Excellent, excellent insight there. And I would agree with you 100%. There are some personality types that you're just not going to get a lot of when you put them in the company of too many other people. Um, Out of the 4 personality types that we talked about, what color do you think that might be? Ryan or anybody else? What color do you think that might be? Hmm. Now the reds, those are the bold people. Those are the people that don't mind hearing themselves talk. The blues, I'd say the blues, and possibly the greens, but I definitely say the blues. Very good, very good. All right. Okay, well, with that, I see that we're at the top of the hour and I don't want to go overtime. If there are any other questions, feel free to come off mute and I'd be happy to entertain a couple before we end for the evening.
Olivia, we do have a few questions under the Q&A. I don't know if you can see it, but if you want me to read it out.
Okay, I did not see the questions at Q&A. Let's see here. I was just looking at chat. Okay. Okay. So Khan was asking, can a person have the mixed characters? And yes, I was definitely saying yes to that. So generally people have a dominant color. So out of the 4 colors, so I will admit I'm a green. So my dominant color is green. But I would say that my other complementary color is blue because I'm very analytical. So so yeah, that's definitely a person can have a mix, but it's important to identify their dominant color and then try to analyze your stakeholders based on that dominant color. I mean, I actually go through after reading this, I go through and try to identify the dominance colors for people and like I said, if I have an opportunity to group them, meaning if I have the opportunity to choose who's going to come to this particular session and not, then I'm going to definitely situate people like for like if possible. So, as a BA, do we need to have a little bit of each personality type? Chameleon, yes, chameleon. Also, so let me just stop there and answer that question. So, yes, you do need to not necessarily have it, but display it. Because remember, I was saying that you know, stakeholders seem to respond better if, especially in more intimate situations, like it's 5 people or less together. If you respond to them either one-on-one or small group situation, you respond like uh, in a way so that they can see themselves in you. Golden relationship right there. That's what they're looking for. So like for someone who's blue, I'll let more of my blue come out, right? For someone who is red, I'm not red in any way, but I can be, right? And I will be if that's what it takes to communicate with that stakeholder, right? So yeah, you need to be a bit of a chameleon in that, when in Rome, do as the Romans. When you're dealing with that person, deliver the kinds of human interactions that they're showing you that they prefer. I'm not saying don't be yourself. I'm just saying that for that interaction, you can be like them or somewhat like them so that they can see themselves in you. We like to see ourselves in other people. That's why we have so much conflict in the world. It's because we can be rather lazy about our relationships. If I don't understand you, but I understand me, then I'm just going to be around people who are like me. And, many scientists have studied human dynamics and team dynamics, and the consensus is the more you diversify your group, you're going to get that input from all over the place kind of thing, the more successful the groups are, you know. So let's see here. Namita, what was your other question? Is it preferred or beneficial to change the personality type depending upon the projects? Yes, that sort of feeds into the other question. And I know it's not easy, but it may be a good skill to master. And 100%, I agree with you on that. 100%. Um, you've got to be a little bit of a chameleon in dealing with people, being around them enough to understand what it is that makes them tick. What's their dominant personality? What are they looking for? Like right now, I've got a stakeholder, and I never, ever communicate with this person after 4 o'clock. I'm on the clock until 5. Stay until 5 o'clock, but I never communicate with them after a certain time because this person, every time I send them something, they respond right away. You know, I'm like, I know you didn't really think about this. Did you even read this? But it's just their knee-jerk reaction. You know, I tend to be more analytical. I tend to send out those emails that, it can challenge a person to read all my details. I get that. I understand. It's just me. So it's okay if you didn't read everything because now you're responding to me and you're asking me a question that was answered in the email. Okay, I'm okay with that. So that means I don't send one of those kinds of emails to this person later in the day because they're not going to read it. I already know they're not going to read it, but I need for them to read it. So what that means is I'm going to send it to them at a time when I know that they've got a little bit more time to read it. Okay. And they do. They're still going to respond super quick. That's just how they are. But, I try my best and I try my best to limit my communications, meaning if I can make it a little bit more brief and not be my over analytical self and make a long email. So I will write the email and then let it rest. And I will come back and write and edit it and try to make it shorter because I know that I want this person to read it, but I know they're not going to read everything. So I highlight certain sections and bold and put little emojis in there, do whatever I can, you know. But it's because I've learned, this is how I deal with this particular person. I have different times. It is a little bit of work, but if I can get the response that I need out of them, it's worth the effort. It's worth the effort. So my encouragement to all of you is to, do a little personality typing, learn about this a little bit more, because, engaging your stakeholders is key to success. You want people to read your emails, respond in elicitation sessions. You've got to get that information out of them some way. And one way is to understand yourself better, as well as taking the time to understand them better as well. Okay. All right. So Kimmy, did I catch all the questions now?
I think you did.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. Well, I enjoyed being with you all. Thank you so much for having me. And feel free to reach out via LinkedIn and look forward to continuing the conversation in another setting. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that very, very interactive and explanatory section. Lots of insights. That was really insightful. I learned a lot myself. And
Thank you.
yeah, you really taught us how to be more purposeful in our stakeholder analysis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it has to start with we understanding ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
looking at where we fall on that spectrum. I can see myself on the green section, actually.
Oh, really? Yay, a fellow
Month.
greener. All right. Very good. Very good.
So I believe this has been a valuable session. If you do have any question, please send that across. And yeah, I know Olivia will be glad to answer your questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So in the absence of any other question, I'd like to say a very big thank you so much to everyone that have joined today. I believe this has been a very good use of your time, and you've all gotten value from this session, because I did a lot of gems.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So when I see you guys in another setting, another meeting, you guys can share with me what you've learned and how you're applying it. That's the big thing. Let's get out
exactly.
here and apply it tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the in thing. Let's go out there, do your purposeful stakeholder analysis,
Hmm.
and get your outcome, your desired outcome from your elicitation sessions.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Olivia. We truly appreciate your time. Thank you for taking time to teach us in this session. I believe we'll be able to analyze our stakeholder better when next we are meeting with them. So a
Sounds
big
good.
thank you to everyone. Thank you, and do have an amazing evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.